Hello. My name's Sam. You're watching Sew That Sparkle with Sam, and this is my Sewing Bee Synopsis episode 2. So if you don't want any Sewing Bee spoilers, what I suggest that you do is go away, watch it quickly, come back and watch me another time. If you do want to watch, then sit back, go make yourself a cup of tea, and I'll see you in a bit. So hello there, this is my second Sewing Bee Synopsis. So we're on episode 2 and this week's theme was travel, or I heard them say holiday a couple of times. I'm not quite sure whether the theme was travel or holiday, but you travel to your holidays, so there you go. It was a fantastic episode, I really enjoyed it, and in these next, well, it will be 9 weeks now, I will be chatting to you all about each episode of the Sewing Bee. And if you enjoy that kind of thing, if you'd like to give me a like, it really helps my channel. And if you enjoy and you'd like to see more, then think about subscribing. That really helps me out too. So, the Sewing Bee. So the opening credits, as always, were much fun, and the kind of crew dressed up as their kind of air attendants, is that the right word, flight attendants, and did their little skit at the beginning. But I have to say, Sarah's dress, how amazing. It was absolutely lovely. It was like something out of a fairy tale picture book in the fabric. It was all very floaty, and there was lots of rainbows and sunshines and kind of in the fabric, but there was really interesting ruffle work on it. Now, I'm not necessarily a very ruffly person, but I would have definitely worn that dress. It was really beautiful, nice ruffles down the front and along the shoulders, I believe, around the sleeves. Yeah, and she just looked really pretty in it, and yeah, it was just really beautiful. I'm definitely gonna look into where they get their outfits made, or who makes them, or where they buy them, because every week I'm really intrigued by what the actual hosts are going to wear, sometimes more so than what the contestants are going to make. So it's really interesting. So yeah, definitely, if you haven't seen it already, check out Sarah's dress. I might pop a picture in it for you so you can see, because I know a lot of you that watch thank you, by the way, so much for so many positive comments on my first episode synopsis. And I know a lot of you that perhaps watch in a different country, or that are not able to watch the Sewing Bee, still watch me, which is just fabulous. So I'm going to try and make a bit of an assertive effort to pop more pictures in, so you're kind of like brought along, and I'm hopefully going to bring it alive a little bit for you. So yeah, so I'll pop a picture in of Sarah's beautiful dress. So yeah, episode 2, travel. And in the first challenge, the pattern challenge, they broke from tradition a little bit, and they did a bag making pattern for a rucksack. So I do a little bit, I dabble in bag making, and I've made a few bags myself. It was a very simple rucksack pattern, and it was very interesting, the audible gasp from the contestants when Esme handed out the patterns told me straight away that a lot of them had never done anything like that before. It was quite interesting, because when as beginner sewers, and obviously when I've worked in the workshops at the sewing school, bag making, those kinds of skills tend to be like things that we teach right at the beginning. Our kind of very beginner sewers, one of the first things that we do is like a little pouch with like a zip line pouch. So it surprised me that so many of them kind of couldn't get their head around certain things. But you know, I mean, bag making isn't garment making, and I have done more bag making, so I suppose you know, I might be on my own on that. It did surprise me that so many of them struggled with like the simple concepts of bag making. But you know, they came up with some really interesting bags. Once again, Vicky, fantastic. She made a fantastic job of her bag. I think she's probably made quite a few bags for her travels and with her family to Glastonbury, as she spoke a little bit about in last night's episode. And her rucksack was really nice, gave me some kind of skater vibes. She chose some checkerboard fabric, and then a really nice fun lining. I've actually got a little piece of that lining in my stash, so I might have to get that out at some point and make something exciting. And she was also the one that was kind of pointing out to the others all about the hardware, because they had to use quite a few different bits of hardware with their webbing, and there was some quite, I don't know whether anyone else makes bag make, but there was some quite interesting sewing on of the webbing. They all had very different techniques of kind of like a box and cross, and there was some quite kind of winky wonky sewing going on. But you know, they, at the end of it, they had a bag, so you know, it was all good fun, definitely all good fun. One thing that I did notice was that they didn't use any interfacing, and I tend to use interfacing a lot when bag making, because obviously if you're going to put hardware on it, it needs something to kind of reinforce it. And I don't know whether they didn't do that because of speed, because they do have to make it in like 3¼ hours, and although I've made bags, I mean 3¼ hours for a full-on bag with all of the hardware is quite an ask, and a lot of them didn't finish their bags, so I think maybe that was the reason that was missed out. But yeah, it was really interesting. Excuse me for looking down. I have made copious notes about how everybody got on with their bags and stuff, so if I do kind of forget things, I'm just kind of popping down so I can see what I've written. Yeah, I like a notebook, and I like to make notes on the Sewing Bee. So Jilly, she came last in that challenge, and the reason that she came last in that challenge, I believe, is that she just didn't listen to Patrick. And come on, if you're on the Sewing Bee and Patrick gives you advice and says, don't use that fabric, use this fabric, you use that fabric. You know, she just didn't listen to his very good advice. Her fabric that she used was far too lightweight. She had picked a heavier weight, I think she picked a canvas as well, that she was going to use for the lining, but as it was, she just didn't get it finished. She definitely didn't have those kind of bag making skills, and so, but I think if she had got it finished and she'd got that heavier weight as the lining, her bag wouldn't have worked anyway, because it would have not rolled over nicely. So yeah, her mistake, her biggest mistake, I think, was not listening to Patrick. And if Patrick tells you, don't use that fabric, don't use that fabric. So yeah, so unfortunately she did come last in that challenge. And quite a few, as I said, quite a few of them that didn't quite finish came at the bottom. And the three at the top was Tony. He's Tony R, but for the purposes of this, I'm going to call him Postman Tony. He's the one that lives in Cornwall, because that's how I remember who he is. So Postman Tony, he came third, Asma came second, and Vicky came first. And Postman Tony had actually made some bags before. He had a lovely sewing bag that he'd made out of camo, and you could tell that he kind of had those skills. But he still made mistakes, so it just goes to show it's not as easy as it looks. And also Tony decided to embellish his bag. He decided to add little bits to it. And I've noticed watching previous episodes of the Sewing Bee, Patrick doesn't like, and Esme doesn't like it when you kind of go off piste a bit. Sometimes they let you get away with it if you kind of pull it off absolutely pristinely, but yeah, they kind of, with the pattern challenge, they kind of like you just to stick to the pattern. So even though he did really well, he came third, and I think that was perhaps because he just pushed it a little bit too far. But yeah, so that was the rucksacks. Transformation challenge, challenge 2. Now, after saying last week that I really enjoy the transformation challenge, and I do, and I enjoy it because of the creativity, in this episode, this was probably my least favourite one of the kind of challenges of the episode, mainly because I didn't really get it. I just didn't really get, so they got given a windbreak. So it's kind of what you use, that you have poles, and it's kind of like, it's made out of that fabric that IKEA bags are made out of. It's kind of like quite structural, heavyweight, plasticky. It makes a crinkly noise when you move it. And like big laundry bags are made out of it as well. It tends to have a stripy or a checked pattern on it. And they were all given this like a sheet of windbreak fabric, and then asked to make a waterproof garment. Well, it's already waterproof, isn't it? The fabric is waterproof. So, but I didn't really understand it because they both asked for, so Esme and Patrick both kind of asked for different things. Patrick was saying he wanted like an appropriate waterproof kind of practical thing, and Esme very much wanted this structural masterpiece, and I think both doesn't work eye to eye. You know, my idea of practical and Esme's idea of practical are obviously two very different things, because if you're going to have a really structural kind of collar or a structural puff sleeve, then it's not going to be very practical as being waterproof, because the water's just going to funnel down your neck, or the water's just going to kind of funnel in your sleeves, and then, you know, it's not going to be very comfortable or practical to wear. However, they did make 11 very interesting garments, and, you know, and it was interesting to see how they all approached it. So that was really good. Oh, Vicky, bless her. She came last in that particular challenge. Yeah, she had a very unfortunate crotch incident with her. She was the only one that made something that was more interesting than just a coat. And she made like a coat or a coat dress. She made a jumpsuit. So, you know, she had a zip through and everything. But I noticed with some of the other contestants, they were very limited on the amount of fabric that they had. And I think because she didn't have enough fabric to make the full jumpsuit, she had to be quite careful and quite tight on the bottom. So it did end up being a really kind of snug, should we call it snug fit on her jumpsuit. So, and she had she had an interesting placed triangle that wasn't very attractive, I have to say. But, you know, she laughed it off, and she did come last in that challenge, but she'd come first in the other challenge, and yeah, and it was what it was. And then the others kind of made interesting takes on kind of the poncho-y type jacket or the more traditional rain mac dress type jacket. The ones that had put zips in, I think, had put a bit more effort into it, because I think it's quite hard to put a zip into that kind of fabric. Some of them had done kind of drawstrings, a lot of them had done kind of a hood. And I do think if you've been asked to make something that's weatherproof, then a hood is a must, isn't it? It's got to have a hood on it, otherwise you're going to get wet. But in that challenge, the winner was Asma. Now, Asma made, again, I'll try and find a picture of it and pop it up for you. Hers looked like a proper kind of British summertime kind of idea, mixed with a bit of kind of Regency RuPaul kind of idea. So it was like this Queen Victoria collar, come bearded dragon collar, and then like a more traditional coat and with a bit of a puffy sleeve. So that was really interesting. And I have to say, structurally, hers did kind of stand out in the lineup. So I think that was probably why she won that one. And then Tony W, sorry, not Tony Postman, Tony W came second, and Tony Postman came third. So actually, Postman Tony had two quite good rounds, because he'd come top three in both of them. So I was really looking forward to seeing what he was going to make for his made to measure, because he'd kind of, you know, having said last week that Vicky was becoming one of my favourites, I have to say Postman Tony has really impressed me this week. Like I saw like a lot of his other skills come out, and I think that's what I really enjoyed the most about this particular week. Was we're really starting to get to know the contestants, you know, really starting to fall in love with them and find out all of their foibles and what they like and what they don't like. And that was really nice. I loved Fauve's and Lauren's relationship. They were just having, you could just sit in the sewing room They were just having fun, you know, they were like twerking along and just having a great time. So that was really nice. It was just nice to see the fun characters pop out. And we saw a little bit more of Matthew's quirkiness, which was really nice. And yeah, and it was just a nice episode that I really enjoyed, and kind of getting to know more about the contestants. So that brings us on to the made to measure, and I just grabbed my notebook for the made to measure. So the made to measure was swimwear, and the challenge was swimwear with a complex element, and that's really important, with a complex element. And I would like to argue that a couple of them didn't really have a complex element. But however, swimsuits are difficult. I've never made a swimsuit. The reason I haven't made a swimsuit is that I struggle with fitting issues, and I think swimsuit is something that has to fit perfectly. And so it might be something that I do one day, but I'm not really in that part of my journey yet. So I knew it was going to be a tricky one for some of them, and I have to say, even the winner of that challenge had fitting issues. There was only a couple of people that had the fit absolutely perfect, but they had other issues. So it was, you know, I think that it was difficult to judge the winner. But yeah, and again, Jilly, bless her, she just had a really bad round. She'd made a couple of mistakes. She had picked fabric that she wanted the fabric to do all the work. It was beautiful fabric, but she just wanted the fabric to do all the work. And she even said, I didn't feel like I needed to do a lot to it, because the fabric, you know, speaks for itself because it's very beautiful. But it's a sewing competition, so the sewing has to show through. Picking a good fabric, we all know that fabric choice is really important, and picking a good fabric is really important for the finished look of the garment. But in a sewing competition, you have to show what you've got to show, and she really didn't. She made a really simple one-piece fabric. The fit wasn't 100% perfect, and the little element that she did do was some little binding around the front, some orange binding, which was very striking and very pretty. It wasn't sewn in very well, and it left like a little kind of bumpy, bulky bit here, so it meant that everything didn't lay very flat. So yeah, so in the end, that did lead to, unfortunately, Jilly going home. So we lost Jilly in that episode. But I have to say, she did have 3 fairly poor rounds. So the fact that she went home was probably the right decision, even though in the made to measure, hers perhaps wasn't the worst in the made to measure, but overall in the episode, I think she'd had the worst week. So yeah, so the other swimsuits, confusingly, these Tonys, Tony W and Postman Tony, both made a halter neck swimsuit with a skirt. So when they were talking about it, because I watch it twice, when they were talking about it, I was like, oh, look out for the halter neck one with the skirt. Oh, which one's that, Tony's or Tony's? But Postman Tony, I have to say, I really liked his and Vicky's, I think, were my favourite swimsuits. Again, I'll pop a picture up of Tony's. It was a beautiful camo, like a camo print. Had a little skort, like skirty shorts area called kind of attachment, and then a halter neck, and it fit his model really well, and I just love the way that he styled it. I love seeing people's kind of personalities really come out in their makes, and it definitely did. So that was lovely. That was really nice. And then Vicky's, which was my other favourite, and I'm pretty sure that that's a Friday Pattern Company pattern. a Friday Pattern Company swimsuit, because I think I've seen it. It's a long sleeve one with like a V front. She's definitely changed the pattern, because I don't think the pattern originally was colour blocked or anything like that. But I think I've seen that pattern before. Yeah, really beautiful, and it fit her model really nicely. Apart from there was a little area in the crotch that was, I think it was just a little bit wide, but because Vicky was using a plus size model, I think that was a little bit on purpose. She did not want to make, she wanted to make sure that it fit her model modestly. But yeah, she just missed the mark a little bit, and perhaps it should have been a little bit thinner in the crotch area. But other than that, I think it looked nice. It looked nice on her model. So yeah. And then the winner of the made to measure was Mia. And Mia's swimsuit was definitely stunning. It was beautiful. It was a beautiful kind of picture perfect. Definitely not for swimming, definitely for lounging around next to the pool. I'll pop a picture up of it here. It had like a lovely sleeve detail and lots of midriff on show. Very pretty, and it was kind of like had a tie front. And again, really showed Mia's personality, and it was a really beautiful swimsuit. So yeah, the other swimsuit that I think could have definitely been a winner was Asma's. Asma did this Marilyn Monroe inspired, beautiful kind of neutral brown cream kind of diamond, again, I'll pop a picture up so you can see, diamond effect swimsuit, which was absolutely stunning, but she burnt it. And I was watching with my husband, and I was like, why haven't she got a pressing cloth? Like, why what's she doing? Why are they all ironing these things? So yeah, she ironed her, unfortunately. She ironed her swimsuit, and it had like, and just because of where it was, she had like a big burn scorch mark right in the middle of her swimsuit, which I have to say didn't look the prettiest. So, but I think if she'd have executed that perfectly, that would have definitely been up there with the winner. So yeah. So episode 2, another fabulous episode. I really enjoyed it. It was really good fun. Next week, in episode 3, they are kind of doing some kind of boho inspired kind of different, I'm not quite sure what the episode is going to be called or kind of what the theme is, but it's all kind of, it was all very floaty, and yeah, and it looks like a few of them had a few issues in the little tiny kind of promo that you get at the end. So I'm looking forward to week 3, and I'm just looking forward to seeing how the characters kind of, how the contestants kind of grow and move on. So yeah, so that's it from me this week. I do hope you enjoyed it, and I've got another vlog coming out a little bit later, my Friday Sews vlog, because I'm doing this for Sewing Bee. My Friday Sews vlog, I'll still film it on a Friday, but it might, by the time I've kind of got around to editing, will come out a little bit later. But this part, if you've watched last week, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you a little bit of snippet from my sweepstake make. So those of you that follow me on Facebook page, I'm running a sweepstake, so those people that follow me, I'm going to just do this little bit of video so that they can watch, and it's a little snippet of what I'm making for the winner, for the prize in the sweepstake. And yeah, so I'll just leave you with that little snippet, and I'll see you next time. So in the meantime, happy sewing. Don't forget to sparkle. Bye for now.